Hi, I'm Joe Pearce, the Innovation Centre in the University of Exeter for the Disruptive Innovation Festival. Talking today to Taryn Mead, a researcher in biomimicry at the Business School at the university.
Taryn, hello, good to see you.
Thank you, it's good to see you too.
Taryn, I wonder if you could give us a little bit of your personal background that has brought you into the field of biomimicry.
Gladly, yeah. So initially, I was a biologist in my first round of training. I have degrees in biology and environmental studies, so both the physical side of sustainability through the biology degree as well as the socioeconomic impacts through the environmental studies degree. And I studied plants and fish and that sort of thing, like normal biologists do. And I was also in uni very active as an activist, doing some campaigning for some state legislature sort of stuff, and I got involved in campus politics, and eventually I just kind of got to the point by the end of my 4 years at uni, I just kind of got tired of saying no to things, and went to retreat and count fish in the Bering Sea as the biologist side of me, and I was looking for a way to say yes to sustainability and yes to a new kind of future. And when biomimicry kind of came back into my forethought again, I realized that this could be a really powerful way to say yes and use my skills as a biologist. So a position became available at Biomimicry 3.8, and which at the time was called Biomimicry Guild or the Biomimicry Institute, their sister organizations. And I started a job there as a biologist at the design table.
Excellent. I wonder if you could perhaps explain a little bit about biomimicry and how that, through the Biomimicry Institute, can impact on business.
Sure. So biomimicry itself, Janine Benyus says that it's the conscious emulation of nature's genius. Another way to think about it is that all of the organisms who live on the planet know how to be sustainable, and there's a lot that humans can learn from these other organisms. So my job as a biologist at the design table was to teach architects and engineers and designers and business people, the people who design the human world, about function in natural systems and how they can learn from natural systems for the functions that they're trying to accomplish in their jobs.
Could you explain a little bit about how the businesses you work with through the Biomimicry Institute were able to bring that thinking into their organizations?
Sure. So it really varied. We did a lot of scale jumping. The first project I worked on was on packaging design for a food manufacturer, for instance. And I had to look at specific attachment mechanisms. So my job was to look for attachment mechanisms in different insects or different plants and that sort of thing. And then I just presented the biology, and then designers would take it from there. So they were looking for new ways to attach packaging, open and closing. So a lot of this, my side of things, was just to understand the biology, and then the design team could take the creativity from there. Another example would be a project I worked on in India doing urban design. So it was a development for about 500,000 people, and so we applied biomimicry at the ecosystem level. So we went from this little tiny scale of, microscopic level of attachment to all the way up to how does a forest filter water, for instance, and then to understand that function and how to translate that function into a building, right? How can that building then filter water like the forest would have done?
Excellent. Oh, very interesting. So, what took you from the Biomimicry Institute to be here and engaging in research at the University of Exeter?
Well, I was traveling a lot as a consultant, and I kind of reached to a point, I met my partner at that time, and kind of got to a point where I was ready for a little bit more stability in my life, and this position became available. Sally Jean-Renaud and JP Jean-Renaud, who have been really active here at the business school, Sally put together a funding proposal through a Marie Curie funding stream, and to specifically find someone to study biomimicry as a management innovation. And so I went through an interview process, and I got the position, thankfully. And now here I am, and I'm studying biomimicry in multinational corporations.
I wonder if you could just perhaps unpack a little bit of the research and what you're moving towards as part of this study.
Sure. So it was really kind of wide open when I first got here as to how we were going to conduct the research. But what I've decided to do is look specifically at about 6 different cases where the organizations, multinational companies, have tried to use biomimicry as an innovation tool. And whether that's an innovation tool for sustainability, or for new product development, or people come in it from a lot of different angles. But I'm trying to understand how multinationals specifically use it, given the context that they have, being really hierarchical structure that's very profit-driven in the way that they're designed, the organizations are designed. How can they use this as a tool for product design or organizational innovations, organizational change kind of strategies, or process design, that sort of thing. So some companies, some of my 6 cases have been very successful, and some of them have been less successful. And I'm really trying to understand why some companies have been more successful than others. So that's been kind of the process I'm in the midst of right now.
And clearly encouraging increased sustainability within multinationals is a very positive thing. Do you feel there's anything which government could do to further encourage the take-up of this sort of approach within businesses?
Most definitely. In 2 of my cases, one of the major roadblocks that they've had is that they've come up against policies that have inadvertently prohibited them from using circular economy methods. So in one case, the raw material that the manufacturer needs is highly subsidized. And so for them to create a marketplace to recycle that raw material has become very cost prohibitive. So because of that subsidy coming from the government, then there's no natural marketplace to take place there. So it disincentivizes the upcycling of the raw material. In another one, there's actually some issues because of the national laws around the protection of biodiversity and using biological materials. They have to go through a really extensive process of certification or approval process in order to use any biological artifacts. So for them to even use a natural model and actually do physical testing on it, they come up against these roadblocks that would increase their innovation cycle by 2 years. So these kinds of things are very real constraints that organizations have to deal with.
And do you get the sense within the multinationals, which are your case studies, that there's very much a high-level interest in adopting these sorts of techniques within the organisation, or is it still contained within sustainability departments and teams within there?
I think it really depends on the organization, of course. The cases that have been successful, there is a company-wide ethic of sustainability, right? And how you go about getting there is different, right? Whether it's through innovation or through sustainability as sort of the pathway into the organization. But for it to be successful, that has to be a general ethic that everyone, as a baseline, kind of agrees on, from what I've found so far.
And does the research which you're undertaking combine with other activities here at Exeter? Do you find that there is an appetite within the business school and within the university and the wider community to sort of participate in this sort of activity?
Well, I think just given that I was invited here today to do this interview, it kind of speaks for itself that there is a culture around this activity. In the business school, there are a number of researchers who are looking at sustainability topics. And we teach a class in the One Planet MBA around biomimicry. That's a week-long course specifically dedicated to biomimicry. So I think that there is quite a bit of momentum here around this topic. I feel really well supported in it.
Excellent. And as you sort of look forward, what would your aspiration for biomimicry adoption over the coming 5 or 10 years be?
I suppose I would like for us to sort of maintain the sense of consciousness that we're participating in natural systems. Because I think it's easy to lose that in our day-to-day lives, lose that sense that we're a biological being ourselves, and we're not the only ones. And so I just, I have a young son, and I just think about how the world is changing so fast. And I just hope that we can hold on to this idea that nature can be a part of our lives all the time. And it's not something that's out there, that it's something that's with us all the time. So I hope that biomimicry doesn't lose that message. Because I think it can be very, it can also be purely an innovation tool. And that has nothing to do with sustainability whatsoever. You know, they're making torpedoes that swim like penguins, you know, and that has nothing to do with sustainability, obviously. So I hope that we can maintain that connection with being in balance with other organisms and other humans.
Fantastic. Taryn, thank you very much for your time today. It's been really interesting. Really
Thank you.